we are assigning colors and fonts to a file that we already created. So step one, and this is true wherever you go, is immerse yourself in the specs. That's what I'm doing now. If a project, no matter how creative, does not match the specs for that project, then it's not acceptable. So the assignment here is to apply a proper color scheme and paired fonts to the poem or song lyrics that we created. We are going to need at least 3 text styles, one for the body tag, one for the heading 1 tag, and one for the paragraph tag. We're going to need a 5-color scheme, 2 Google fonts, and we save the page as color-font.html, submit a link to the project, which means, of course, we have to upload it to the web, and then submit the work with a narrative. And if I look at the grading rubric, the last item there, I can see that explaining the choice of fonts and colors is actually a big part of the grade. So with that in mind, and constantly coming back to compare what I'm doing to the specs for the project, let me jump into my code editor just to kind of check in there. I have the file. I opened the file that I created for the previous lab, and then I saved it with a new file name. So now it's color-font.html, and I've got my lyrics in front of me. And I think I'm going to start with, well, the first step actually is going to be to head over to our friends at W3 Schools and get some advice on how to define an embedded CSS style. So right here at the homepage of w3schools.com, they anticipated that a lot of us would want to know how to do a basic CSS example. And I like to jump into their try it yourself feature. And I'm going to grab the code and identify what we're getting here. So everything is inside the head element. Be careful about that. Let me emphasize it again. Your style content in a web page goes inside the head element. Users won't see that content. That it applies to the page, browsers will read it, but you don't want it showing up on the page itself. So it goes inside the head element, and I'm going to copy it. Then I'll jump back into my code editor. And inside the head element, I can do this after the title. I'm going to paste this template. Now, of course, I'm not really going to use the colors and fonts that they select, but still using their template code will be a way for me to see whether or not I've got my syntax right, whether or not the code's all right. So I'm going to save this, and then I'm going to open my page in a browser and refresh, and here it is with the fonts and colors straight out of the box from W3 Schools. Now I won't be leaving these here, but they work. There's the color, there's the Verdana font, everything that we applied worked. So now it's time to work on a color scheme and select some fonts. Let's do the color scheme first. So there's a couple tools that I'm going to be using here. One is Adobe Color, and the other is a color contrast calculator. And if I don't have that open yet, I'll search for it. It'll be easy to find. Color contrast calculator. There's different ones. This is the one I like, contrast-ratio.com. This is going to tell me whether or not my color scheme is going to meet the requirements for accessibility, or whether or not it will flunk those color contrast rules, or even do worse than flunk. Utterly flunk, in which case my color scheme might be attractive, but it might, I didn't say it was, but it fails the WCAG accessibility standard, which is a requirement of a lot of websites. Anything you do in a contract that has anything to do with the government, it's like having a business without a handicapped ramp. So I'm going to have to make sure that the color scheme I pick is accessible, and I'm going to hang on to this, keep it open. But my next stop is to get creative over here in Adobe Color. Now, I'm doing some lyrics for John Lennon's song, and I decided I wanted to extract colors from one of his album covers. So I saved that album cover, and I'm uploading it here in the extract theme panel. And immediately I get a nice looking set of colors. However, I've been around this business long enough to know that the color contrasts here aren't sharp enough. So I'm going to jump into the color wheel that's going to give me a little ability to tweak these. And I think I'm going to use these three colors, but I'm going to darken this one so I get more contrast. And I'm going to lighten this one a lot so I get more contrast. Now let's see if this text over this background is enough contrast to satisfy requirements. So this text, I'm pasting the hexadecimal value here, and then let me go back and get that background color. And paste that into the color contrast calculator. And now I've actually got a very good color contrast. So I had to tweak the generated colors a bit in Adobe Color, but here they are. I'm going to use black for my headline, the dark gray for my lyrics, and the tan or whatever beige for my background. So we'll start with the beige background. I'm going to copy this hexadecimal value and go into my code, and for the body tag I'm going to change that to this, and let me save my file. And just, I like to just check a lot so I don't dig myself into too deep a hole. So I'll refresh, and there's my background, and it's coming together. Next, I will go into Adobe Color and get the color that I was going to use for the title of the poem. And so that will be my heading 1 color. So let me jump back into my code editor. And for heading 1, I'm going to change it from white to this color. And finally, I'll go get the color that I chose for paragraphs after checking in the color contrast calculator. And there is no color defined for paragraph. It's just the default black was in effect. So now I get to type a little code, and I'll copy what I got, the syntax that I got from W3 Schools, which is color, which is the property, and then a colon, then the value, the hexadecimal value, and each property is separated with a semicolon. So I'll save this. I will go back into my browser and see how my poems are coming together. So here's my color scheme. It's subtle, like I wanted. I wasn't looking for a lot of intense primary colors here. By the way, you may notice, and I think some of you have bumped into this styling property, the text is aligned centered for the title. I'm actually going to get rid of that just to show you that you can. It's not that effective given that we're not centering the content in general. So I'm going to leave it like this. You can center it. So I now have my color scheme in place. Next step is to select some fonts. And for that, I can clean up a little of my open tabs here. We'll get there. And I'm in Google Fonts, and I search for Lotto. I'll explain why a little bit later, but I'm going to go with Lotto as my font. And I want a nice light one for the lyrics and a bold one for the heading. So I'm going to first of all select, I don't want it too light, like that's too light, but I think 300 would be nice. So I'm going to select this style, and then I'm going to select a bolder style for the heading. So I've selected my two styles. Next step is to click on the embed tag here, and I'm just going to follow the instructions and paste this into the head element of my HTML. So I'm doing that, copying it, going back into my HTML, and in the head element again, I'm going to embed this, and this is a link to where the downloadable Lotto font, the lightweight one, and the at least the lightweight one, is saved. And then I see both of them. Okay, and then this is the font family that I want to apply. So I'm going to grab this font family rule, and I'm going to use the I'm going to use this for everything. So here's the logic that I'm going with. By assigning this font to the body tag, it's going to apply to everything on the page. So there's no need, and I'm going to get rid of the font family for the paragraph tag. There's no need to apply it to the paragraph tag because the paragraph tag is within the body tag. However, I can still do the weight, and I had downloaded the 700 for the H1, and for the paragraph tag, that's font weight, and for the paragraph tag, I guess I'm doing these all on separate lines, which is a good way to do it. Font weight, 300. Okay, let's see how that plays out. So I'm going to go take a look at my file. And there's the heavy duty Lotto, the heavy weighted Lotto, with the lighter weighted Lotto for the poem itself. So I think I basically got this. I mean, I could tweak it, I could change it, but I'm going with it. We'll skip the tweaking and changing process. I do want to just note that because I selected two different font weights from Google Font, I did have to do a little bit more with the code than was suggested here. I also had to add a font weight. So I selected the 700, I selected the 300, and that gave me the option to use font weight 300 and font weight 700. So that's a little bit off the charts, but that's what I did. So I think I'm pretty well set now. Let me take one last look at this. And got 3 colors. Ooh, wait a minute. Did I use 3 colors? Yeah, color 1, color 2, and color 3, the background. I used 2 fonts. In my case, I used 2 different weights of the same font. That counts. You had to watch this video to find that out, but I'm telling you, that's the way it is. So the last step is, well, there's 2 more steps. One is to upload this file to my website, and Let's see what kind of a mood our free hosting site at 000 web host is in today. They seem to be kind of responsive. Oh, maybe I spoke too soon. Nope. And I'm going to navigate through all the ads for different things, get right to my file manager, upload a file, look for that little arrow pointing up into the cloud once I get to the file manager. Oh, don't forget, everything you want people to see goes into the public_HTML folder. So I'm going to upload my homework. And there's no extra files to upload here. I don't have any images in this. Before I submit it, oh my God, I'm not going to alienate the instructor by posting a link that doesn't work. So I'm going to definitely check this link. Okay, my file made it up onto the internet nicely, and I'm going to copy and paste that URL so I don't have to worry about making any typos. And now it's time to submit my work here in Blackboard, which we're using. So I'm going to go to, can I submit homework as a guest here? Hold on, content. Yeah, okay, project 2. And double check, okay, I've got everything covered, yes. Okay, so now what I'm going to submit, first of all, is my URL. Don't worry, I tested it. Believe me, I'm not going to submit a URL to the instructor that I haven't tested. Don't even worry about it, let alone a client. Seriously, submit a bad URL to a client that you haven't tested? Okay, so there's one more thing, and that is the required narrative. Now, I composed mine before because I wanted to think about it a little bit, but let me just copy it and paste it, and I'll show you what I came up with. So I explained my thinking behind the color scheme. I emphasized that I tested the color scheme and the color contrast ratio, and it meets WCAG standards. I explained why, I kind of deviated a little bit from the assignment, but I think I was well within the spirit of the assignment and even within the letter of the law here. I'm explaining why I went with Lotto font. Talk to your typography teacher about Lotto. There's a lot of advantages to it, and it ports well to print. So I wanted to make sure that my client in real life or my instructor in school knows why I did that. And then finally, I'm just kind of summarizing the experience. So with all that, I'm submitting the homework, and I'm ready to go, and I'll look forward to hearing back from the instructor.